Hi everyone, it's Kyra Wong, and I'm here today with my next leading lady, Sabeena Bubber. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. It's going to be fabulous, and I can't wait to get started. So, Sabeena, thanks for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here, Kyra. Thank you so much for having me.
So, what's a limited belief that you've struggled with in life?
So, the limiting belief that I struggled with was that I'm not smart enough. I grew up in a traditional Indian household. My dad had a lot of emphasis on academics, as did my mom, because that's the focus of our culture, is that you need to be a doctor, lawyer, dentist, something, engineer. My dad was an engineer, to be a professional in life. And he wanted us to succeed as women. I have an older sister. And so academics was a big focus for us. I didn't learn through academics. I learned through experience. So for me, growing up, I didn't have the best marks. I wasn't able to get in to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. And my parents were just happy that I just made it through, because at some point I didn't think they knew that I would make it through at any point to really amount to anything, to be quite honest. So, and I think with my sister was very academic and very successful in school and grades, and she went on to do her PhD in psychology, and I was, happy that I got my bachelor's degree. Although I did better in university than I did in elementary or high school, it was still always a struggle for me.
And what's a current limiting belief you now have?
That I can't have it all. I have a successful career. I have two beautiful daughters. I have a very strong relationship with them, and I have a beautiful life. I'm living my dreams. What I've set out for myself, I've achieved, but I'm missing that one piece of having a partner, and I have that limiting belief that maybe I can't have it all.
Have you ever had a limiting belief as it relates to gender or race?
Oh, yes. For me, growing up in Regina in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Oh, gosh, I just dated myself. Sorry. Actually, I meant the 80s. Growing up, there wasn't a lot of brown girls in the school, and I was picked on, beat up a couple times when I was 5 and 6 by kids in grade 8. And so it really, I was teased, called names, you name it. It was just, it really affected me.
You were bullied.
I was definitely bullied, and just primarily because of the color of my skin. And it was something I didn't understand, and I did not want to be brown. I wanted to be white so bad, and so I did everything I could to fit in. And yet I never really felt like I did. As I went on to high school and I was no longer bullied in that environment of high school, I still had that underlying that I was never really going to belong. And growing up in an Indian family, there's also that underlying thing that you've got, you're not a boy. And I think that from my dad's perspective, actually from both my parents' perspective, they wanted us to succeed as girls and didn't want us to rely on a man. So I was really fortunate to have family that wanted us to succeed in life without having the gender roles, which is probably what got me to where I am today. However, out there in the world, I realized that I would do a lot better if I was a man. I was definitely treated differently in a corporate environment in the first few years that I was in a corporate environment before I became a broker, and it was tough.
Have you ever experienced a corporate glass ceiling? I find when I interview leading ladies, a lot of them who are mortgage brokers because they came from a financial background where they were bumping up against the glass. Was this true for you too?
Absolutely. I did work at the bank at one point, but at that point I was already a mortgage specialist and wasn't looking to promote. But prior to that, I worked with mortgage finance companies, and I worked as an underwriter for a secondary subprime mortgage lender. And there was no opportunity for me to promote. And I was given promises of promotion if I achieved certain results, and I demonstrated them and blew them through the roof in terms of my achieving the goals they set out for me. I blew them out of the water, and they would not promote me. It got to the point where I'd become so valuable in what I was doing because of the results I was producing. They didn't want to lose those results by promoting me and leaving that to somebody else.
Ah, awful. Yeah, that's terrible. So they're always just promoting men instead.
100%. Yeah.
Who weren't getting the results. Oh, you weren't getting the results. We're going to promote you.
Yeah, well, it happened in one of the branches I was working in
dear.
where I was basically running the show and the branch manager was sitting in the corner, and I was managing the collections department. I was managing all the bad debts. I was going out and doing repossessions and doing the foreclosures, going to court, also closing loans and selling loans at the same time, and doing all aspects of the management of the branch as well as the actual sales that my job entailed. And when I applied for a promotion, I got the door slammed in my face.
What's a piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
The piece of advice I would want to give to myself is to start my professional development a lot earlier than I did. I only started my self-development, professional development, personal journey 10 years ago. Had I started 20 years ago, I think I'd be a lot further ahead of my life by now. For me, the global pandemic allowed me to find more time. I decided to close my business office and go exclusively to working at home. I had already started doing a lot of Zoom meetings and online scheduling with my clients, so it made it a lot easier. I gained back so much time by doing that. I have a lot more time with my daughters than I had before, and it has made all the difference for me in just getting that time with them that I didn't have. We were always in this rat race of you've got to go to school, after school you've got this activity, that activity, running to throw supper on the table. I'm trying to run to the office, get everything done. I felt like I was on this hamster wheel. And I finally got to slow that wheel down and find my priorities. And in finding my priorities, I found things that I've been striving for all along: better health, exercise. I'm exercising 6 days a week now, and I'm loving it.
Wow,
and when I say that, that's a huge thing for me because I've never loved exercise in my life. And now I'm like, when am I going next? Is basically I'm done one workout, and I'm like, okay, when am I fitting it in? How am I getting it into my schedule? And now it's my schedule working around being able to fit that in. And I have time for things that when I couldn't make time for things before, I'm finding time for those things now. And I've been able to go back to my purpose and reevaluate what my goals were and what I'm striving to achieve, and maybe to block out some of what's happening on the outside world in the media and in social media and that kind of thing, not to get caught up in the negative environment. And I found that that's created a very positive environment in my home, in my business, with my clients. And I'm a lot more relaxed and peaceful than I was before.
I also want to ask you about 100 Brokers Who Care, because you were the brainchild behind that. So why did you start this initiative, and what was your main reason for doing that?
I started 100 Brokers. My friend Wendy, her daughter passed away in a tragic accident. She drowned off Gambier Island with Wendy's ex-husband, who had taken her for the weekend, and they both drowned. And so Wendy was a single self-employed mom, and she literally didn't have the money to pay her rent that week because the child support wasn't going to come in. The girl was gone. Everything was it was a horrendous experience, and it was her only daughter, and she was absolutely devastated. And so I started a GoFundMe page to help her out financially with the short-term expenses of the funeral, some rent, that kind of thing. Kind of set a limit on it of $25,000 and I called my friend Jackson Middleton and said, do you know how I would do this? And he said, well, and we threw around some ideas, and we talked about 100 Brokers Who Care at that point. And they said, well, I don't have time to set up this group, but I created a Facebook group and added a bunch of brokers, and the next thing I knew, my GoFundMe page had received about $7,000 in donations from the broker community across Canada. So when that happened, I realized there are people on that list that I didn't know, that didn't know Wendy, and still opened up their hearts and their wallets to help a person who needed it. And that's when I realized within 3 weeks we had raised a total of $35,000, and then we just turned the tap off because Wendy was like, that's too much money. It's enough for me for right now. So we turned it off. And I realized that if I can make that impact for one person just by using social media, perhaps there's somebody in the East who might have a similar situation. And how about if we created this group of people that would do that consistently, where we put forth families, charities, people that we know that need help, and we can contribute as a collective. So the first couple years, we couldn't get past 67 brokers, and I was honestly ready to throw in the towel. And then I met a few people in the industry who were like, oh, you're doing a great thing. And they stepped forward and became part of my board. And essentially, we worked together to get past 100. Now we're at 155. We're ready to split into East and West and create this environment of having regular contributions out there. So we've donated $115,000 to date.
That's
so
excellent.
it's been pretty amazing. And some of the families that we've helped, parents have had to take time off work because they have children suffering from childhood illnesses like cancer and various other disorders. Some families that have been hit twice with illness, whether it be a child and a parent or something like that. And we've also helped out people in our mortgage community. We've had a number of instances where money has been donated back into people who in our own community that have needed it.
So this is my favorite question. What is your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is a butterfly.
Ooh, tell me more.
The animal is a totem that is primarily associated with symbolism of change and transformation. The butterfly symbolizes a powerful transformation, a metamorphosis in your life and personality. It describes moving through different life cycles, a renewal and a rebirth. A butterfly expresses a lightness of being and a playfulness and an elevation from earthly matters, tuning into emotional or spiritual. The butterfly reflects on the world of the soul and the psyche. I would say I've had more than one rebirth in my life, and ironically, it seems to come at the decade mark. So in my 20s, it was about getting married and settling in and thinking that was what I needed to do at that time, and that was my future, that I needed to get married or I would never get married. And in my 30s, I knew there was something bigger for me, and I was striving for better, and that was, for me, becoming a mortgage broker. And that I started as a mortgage specialist in 2001, and then I went on to become a mortgage broker. And as I was going through that, I realized that I had found the career that I absolutely loved. And then I was like, okay, it's time to have kids. So I had both my kids in my 30s. And then when I turned 40, I remember thinking to myself, and I believe I did say it out loud, and I said, there's something coming for me in this decade, and it's going to be big. And I didn't realize how big it would be, and I didn't realize how painful it was going to be. And that was the end of my marriage. And after 27 years of being in a partnership, that came to an end. And that transformation for me has been the biggest. I have spent the last 4 years, I would say the last 4 years have been a huge rebirth for myself, finding out who I am. I got married so young that I really didn't know who I was as a person. And now I'm finding that person, and I'm loving who she is. And I'm not making any concessions for my external environment so much. It's more about being true to who I am and what I want and what's important to me. And the primary focus, of course, is my daughters and helping them to live that true life going forward, that they can be true to themselves and grow and not feel like they need to fit in a specific box or live up to a certain standard in any way, and that they can be free to find their way. Honestly, I think for me, overcoming those was almost just to not even believe that they were there, if that makes sense. So saying, okay, this may be a challenge, but this is something that I can get through. So not looking short term at this is where I am today, this is where I see myself, and how do I get there? And so that's how I've gotten to where I am, is not worrying about what's in front of me, but worrying about where I want to go. And that's what's helped me to pass through those hurdles. And sometimes it's a matter of just, honestly saying to the universe, please show me how I can do this, or please show me the way. I would like to attract this into my life. I want to bring financial prosperity. Show me how to take care of my human body in a better way. Show me how to do all these things. And that has come with time. And sometimes that has come in the form of people that have come into my life that have showed me how to achieve those things. And not necessarily people that I went out and was looking for. Mm-hmm. They landed in front of me. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds a little above.
No.
It sounds a little butterfly in that, because I'm flying above the earth a little bit in terms of not being, not thinking too much in the details, just trusting that it's going to happen and that I can get there. Of course, you can't just have a goal and not work towards it. You have to work towards it. It's just a question of, the pieces will fall together if you do the work to get there, and also be open to let the solutions come in. So it's not necessarily that you have to reinvent the wheel to get there, but there are ways to get there.
Yeah,
and some of the things are little things, like sometimes it comes down to, I know it sounds silly, but routine. Mm-hmm. How do you start your day? How do you finish your day? What do you do? What do you do to keep focused on those things that you want in your life? So do you write a goal and then forget about it? Or do you sit and journal and meditate and, get into physical movement? There's different ways that I've used to help me achieve those results, is just through, it's always there in my unconscious mind. I'm working through it and that kind of thing. My dad. Yeah. My dad has taught me a lot about being a professional. My dad has held me to a higher standard. And whenever I've done anything or conducted myself in a certain way, I always have to ask myself, would my dad be proud of me? And if my dad, if the answer is yes, then obviously it's something I will do. So I've always been proud of myself in the sense that I conduct myself in a way that my dad would always be proud to say, yes, that's my daughter. And I know it sounds silly, but it comes back to that limiting belief of not being smart enough. I've always been trying to prove my worth. Mm-hmm. And so in doing so, I want my dad to really say, yes, she's arrived. She's there. I'm proud of her, that kind of thing. And I've known for years that he has. And that limiting belief I've been able to put to rest. But I still do it in that way where, I consult with him on certain things. As he's gotten older, he maybe doesn't care about the business so much when I'm consulting him, but on parenting, he's definitely given me some great advice.
And didn't your dad just text you before we started this interview just to randomly tell you that he loves you?
He did, and he had no idea we're doing this right now. It just came out of the blue.
What a great dad! Mwah, 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 mwah.
So he was obviously just thinking about me, and his ears must have been burning knowing that he was going to come up today. I'm working on that. It's a work in progress. It's not perfect. I do believe that no matter who we are as human beings, that we will grow up as adults and have some sort of limiting beliefs that we go into adulthood, and that there are some scars from our childhood that we just cannot do to prevent our kids from experiencing. So I try to help them understand what those might be, but more important than not is just to raise them in a very supportive, understanding, loving environment. I'm very much into Dr. Gordon Neufeld. I did Power to Parent 1 and 2, which are intense courses that you do. A long story short, the kids were sick my girls were sick when they were younger, and my doctor would tell me that I was working too hard, and the kids were sick because I wasn't a great mother. Oh. And so I went to counselor who said, take this course, it's Power to Parent, and it'll help you to connect better with your kids. So I became very much into attachment parenting. It turned out my kids had celiac disease. It had nothing to do with me, but it was the
bun.
best.
It was
the
bread.
bread.
God.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me, was to get that advice and take those courses, because I really do have an environment for my kids that is nurturing and supporting and understanding their struggles and trying to be there for them as they need it.
Mm-hmm.
And with now it's Dr. Shafali is a new one, talking about being a conscious parent. And I find that in my household with them, it's very much, there's not a lot of anger going on in our household. It's more just peace and understanding and that kind of thing. There's hangry.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened to me a couple times, but usually the underlying stuff that there's no. I don't remember the last time I actually don't even know if I have ever disciplined my kids, nor if I ever needed to. So it's been remarkable, and just showing them that they can be what they want, and if they set their mind to it, and giving them the freedom to know that there's no guidelines around that, and there's no. I have certain expectations, but only for them to live the life that they want for themselves. I think it has to come from within. We've all been conditioned since we were children to think in a certain way or behave in a certain way when it comes to women or different races, and until we change that internal programming that we have, it'll be really challenging for us to do it on an intellectual level. We have to really come from within, from the spirit, from our soul, to truly understand why we think that way.
So, social glass ceilings, #MeToo. It's my least favorite question to ask about, but because it's so prevalent and so damaging, I feel like it's an important topic to cover. So, have you had experiences where you were facing a social glass ceiling, having experienced a #MeToo moment in your life?
I think that, yes, I have experienced it. I've experienced issues with that since I was 16. So my first job, where I was sexually harassed on the job by a man in his 40s, and at that point I'd never even been approached by a person at that age, even in school. So it was really shocking to me, and it's been an experience of that again and again and again throughout my career, whether it was corporate, whether it's as a broker, that kind of thing. And what would I say to a woman now? I don't know. I don't know, Kyra. I don't know the answer to that. What would I say to my younger self? I would say that your value is beyond who they see on the outside, and that you need to stand up for what your value is, and that we are smart enough, and we can sit at the table and be there because we earned it, not because we're pretty and we're eye candy.
Thanks, Sabeena. And for more leading lady interviews, visit magicalunicornproject.com.